Today we're going to talk about Ernest Edward Knight, my grandfather and one of the greatest and underrated influencers in America. So when you think about someone being a good influence, what characteristics come to mind? Are they kind and compassionate? Are they strong, either physically or mentally? Are they reliable or hardworking? These are characteristics I would have never thought of if it wasn't for my grandpa Ernest Knight. Growing up, I never knew where my manners came from when I said please or thank you, yes ma'am, no sir. And when I became a young adolescent, I thought I had magically developed the ability to rock a job interview or have an awesome work ethic. But I always wondered what lit the fire inside of me whenever somebody needed help, and I wanted to be the first one to reach out a hand or open the door. As I got older, the magic wore off, and I realized that I gained these traits from my grandfather. Ernest Knight was one of the best examples of perseverance, patience, and compassion. But let's start with perseverance. To get through life, one must be a hard worker, and my grandpa was a hard worker. To understand how hardworking he was, you have to understand the life of a truck driver. According to Jobs.net, out of 365 days in a year, 300 of those days are spent on the road. And that only leaves 65 days at home with their family. I witnessed this when my family and I would go on vacation, and instead of going with us, he'd be at work. They also mentioned the possible requirement of 70 hours during an 8-day period. Now, most people would complain about working 6 days a week, but I never heard my grandpa complain about the long hours that he had to work. Being a hard worker can be stressful, and sometimes this can affect our emotions, and despite our best efforts, we take it out on the ones that we love and care about. But my grandpa was patient. He was patient during inconveniences, like when my aunt was a young adolescent and had two different car keys that were remarkably similar. She went to a relative's house to visit, and around 4 a.m. she decided to leave and her car wouldn't start. So, of course, she called my grandpa. And my grandpa came and looked at the battery, looked at other parts that could have been disassembled, and finally asked for the key. And that's when he found the problem. It was the wrong key. He could have lashed out being sleep deprived, but he didn't, and he continued to rescue not only my aunt, but eventually me every time we had car problems. He was also patient at work. Whenever he would tell me about his day and something that somebody said that was pretty off or rude, he would let those words roll right off his shoulder and continue to work with a positive attitude. My grandpa was most patient when it came to raising his family. As someone who came from a family with lots of personalities, like very strong-willed, or defining, or irresponsible, he took those personalities in gracefully, and he accepted us for who we were. Being patient requires possessing a lot of traits, and the most important trait is compassion, and my grandfather was a symbolic figure of compassion. My grandfather was a man of God, and although he wasn't the person on the first row of church, he studied the Bible as much as he could. He used the Bible to show people that although you are not perfect, you are worthy of being loved by God, and you also are worthy of being helped by a man of God. He did this by helping those in need and never asking for anything in return. He also showed compassion by donating to countless of charities that were offered to him through the mail. And I also witnessed him show compassion to those during the hardest times in their life. I witnessed him help people during hardships like alcoholism, anxiety, and depression. So through his demonstrations of perseverance, patience, and compassion, my grandfather became one of the greatest influencers to not only me, but those around him. It's important to have people like Ernest Knight because he teaches us how to be an outstanding individual. So when you think about what it takes to be a good person, then I hope you think about Ernest Knight and know that you do not have to be perfect, but you can be hardworking, patient, and compassionate. Thank you.